I don't know if I can keep doing this. Every time I try to do good, more blood ends up on my hands.
Peter Parker lives in the gap between identities, known completely by no one. Matt Murdock just stood before New York and publicly destroyed his own. The city didn't celebrate his honesty. They didn't offer a reprieve or a moment of understanding. Instead, the public reacted with the immediate hostility of a crowd that feels betrayed. Maintaining a secret identity requires inhabiting two distinct spheres. The public and private are held apart by a narrow, high-pressure zone called the gap. Living here requires constant performance. The exhausting vigilance of the lie eventually stretches this fabric until it fractures. Society demands its heroes remain as symbols. When a hero attempts to exist as a fully exposed person, the public's default reaction is to turn on them. While most people view code switching between different versions of themselves as a social necessity, Matt Murdock's Catholic framework classifies intentional concealment as sin. Every night, Matt offered an incomplete confession. He presented the lawyer, but hid the vigilante. And that half-truth offered to God became more corrosive to his spirit than any physical injury sustained on the street. By the time he walked toward the cameras, the internal weight of that contradiction had reached a point of critical failure. The psychological cost of the lie had finally exceeded the physical danger of the truth. Radical transparency acts as a survival mechanism, triggered when the human conscience can no longer sustain the pressure of its own contradictions. Daredevil's moral framework creates rigid operational boundaries that his enemies simply do not have. This creates a structural weakness built directly into his character. Wilson Fisk bypasses physical combat to attack Matt's conscience. He operates in the spaces created by Matt's Catholic guilt, building empires in the seconds where Murdock hesitates to strike. This creates asymmetric morality. By extending the possibility of redemption to the unrepentant, the hero provides his enemy with the time and space needed to consolidate power. Murdock defends a legal system he knows is broken, then moonlights as a vigilante who still insists on enforcing that system's flawed values. Holding absolute principles in an unprincipled world makes your behavior predictable. In a fight against the ruthless, predictability functions as a massive vulnerability. What practical realities shifted the second Matt Murdock's identity became public knowledge? The logistical fallout is immediate. His enemies now know his address, his daily habits, and the faces of every single person he loves. The superhero mask was never designed to protect the hero. It serves as a firewall protecting their loved ones. By choosing psychological survival for himself, he drafted his friends into a lethal crossfire without their permission. We are forced to question whether radical transparency is an act of ultimate courage or an act of profound selfishness dressed in the language of bravery. Dr. Doom shows us absolute power. Wilson Fisk shows us ruthless strategy. Peter Parker shows us costly goodness. Daredevil represents a portrait of what integrity looks like when it is fiercely inconvenient, stripping away the protection of anonymity entirely. His defining human trait is his refusal to be purely heroic or purely selfish. He insists on being both simultaneously and seeking penance afterward. Once the world knows who you truly are, you lose the option of ever retreating into another version of yourself. Matt Murdock's journey illustrates the reality of absolute honesty. It requires the terrifying willingness to endure the devastating collateral consequences of living completely exposed. Next time, we look at Frank Castle, a man who erased himself from existence to wage an endless, faceless war. We'll examine whether the total erasure of the self is the only way to achieve uncompromised justice. Subscribe. That conversation starts next Friday.